one take. I'm like Jay-Z in the booth, you know?
That's exactly what I was thinking. So we are what, like 3 or 4 days away from Money 2020. I didn't go last year, which was the first time that I hadn't gone in like 6 years. Minus, I guess the start of COVID, they probably didn't have it
Yeah, they didn't.
that year.
Yeah.
So I've taken one intentional break, which was last year. Very excited to go back. I'm there Monday and Tuesday, full days. We have dinner with one of our clients on Monday night, which I'm really looking forward to because, well, it's Shake Pay, and Wasim and Eric are just fantastic. Always learn a lot in speaking with them, and of course, our partnership's pretty deep with them. I have a pretty full diary of meetings with U.S. sponsor banks. The work that I am doing at Avara right now intersects really nicely with those old friends, and so I'm pretty excited to go re-engage in that conversation. I think they're all going to be very excited based on what they saw Stripe do earlier this week with the Bridge acquisitions. Yeah, we can talk about Bridge. We can talk about what you're looking forward to at Money 2020. Where do you want to start?
We actually have a Money 2020 story, which is we actually got sat at a dinner at the Bellagio in 2022,
That's
you and
true.
me, randomly. And that's how we initially met. At the time, you know, you were helping out doing some consulting work, I think with Wealth Simple. And I think your latest startup was kicking
Yep.
off or was in full swing. I was still at Mogo, you know, building investment products at that time. And yeah, it was like a brief connection and we chatted, connected on LinkedIn, never really kept in touch other than kind of, you know, acknowledging what each other was doing and working on LinkedIn through reactions. But, you know, many years later, obviously got reconnected when times changed and here we are. So this is kind of a new chapter, new beginning at Money 2020 for us. And also we're going to be launching couple of new pieces of assets and collateral timed with the show. So we're excited about it.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, there was a DC Bank dinner at the Bellagio. So shout out and
Yeah,
thanks to Jeff and the DC Bank team
for
for
sure.
getting us in contact.
Yeah. I mean,
Actually, Phil was at that dinner too, and I think he
that's
was
right.
sitting between us, and he just announced a fundraise for his company, which
That's right. Yeah,
so hopefully we'll see him again as well.
for sure.
Speaking of my old company, I mean, this is the tie into what we saw from Stripe earlier this week. So Bridge started around the same time as Ratio, which was this crypto payments infrastructure business I was building. And, you know, it was ourselves and Bridge and another one called Miso or Meso. I never really figured it out. Um, and I think we were all thinking about the same thing, which was that, you know, being able to move stable coins on and off chain as seamlessly as you could top up, you know, your Monzo or Cash App or Wealthsimple account, that felt like a big unlock for this space. And around that opportunity also exists this opportunity to become sort of a liquidity layer for stable coins, which to me is the opportunity that Stripe is chasing here. I mean, a $1.1 billion acquisition, largest in Stripe's history, largest in the history of crypto, for a team of 40 people with a little bit of technology and a little bit of regulatory work done and some licensing, but nothing that is really going to drive, you know, that type of price point for Stripe. So I think this is really about a bet on the value of controlling some of that stablecoin liquidity because it's effectively deposit brokering, right?
Yeah.
Deposit brokering is a tried and true TradFi business. If you can direct deposits, you can direct the flow of funds, of course, and you can generate a profit by abstracting those underlying institutions that ultimately hold the money, or US treasuries and money market funds. So I think this is a very clear communication from Stripe to the market that A, they are in first position. That was my phone going off because this is the first time I've done this, of course. I don't even know that. It's a clear expression to their customers and their partners that they intend to be the market leader here. And now they've got 40 people that have only been thinking about this for 2 years. The scope of the opportunity is almost limitless, right? If you assume that all value is moving on chain on some time horizon, there's $150 billion of US dollars on chain today. US M2 money supply, which is like demand deposit accounts plus short duration US treasuries, is $22 trillion. There's tons of demand for US dollars globally. I love this personally, and I hope that there's a lot of discussion about this at Money 2020.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there will be. Obviously it's caught some people like by surprise. In a lot of ways that speaks to, I guess how the early stages. And really, I mean, crypto natives obviously know a lot about stable coins, but there's still a huge world out there who absolutely, might have heard the word and just like doesn't understand it yet and hasn't come face to face with it yet. I think that for Stripe in a lot of ways, I don't know if you'd agree. I mean, listen, this is a big bet. Stripe, it's actually not that big of a bet, just considering how large Stripe is. But I think for the industry as a whole, it's a market mover that, over the last couple of years, I think we've seen regulators move towards understanding kind of like the value of stable coins. You've obviously seen investments from MasterCard and Visa, and like Square and other fintech companies. And so, I think that the direction is a positive one. But then you start looking at some of the data and like some of it's actually shocking. Stables are now the 6th largest purchaser of US treasuries. And, it's just like, you can see where this is going. And, now that you've seen a like stake in the ground style of investment by Stripe, one of the largest payment companies in the world. I just feel like this is the beginning of a flow of capital and investment and resources towards this sector.
Totally. Yeah, it's a tipping point, right? You spoke about Stripe being at a scale where this doesn't seem like where the risk reward equation here, seems to line up, but they've just got a lot of operational maturity in the space. They were a very early supporter of the Stellar blockchain. And they backed away from that. And then when they released their crypto on off-ramp offering, which is baked into Stripe Link, much like you see from other on-off-ramp providers, MoonPay, Transact, and so on, if those names are familiar to folks, I just spend too much time in this space. They, in those experiences, are not touching crypto. They have a third party underlying them called Zero Hash, and Zero Hash handles the liquidity as well as the cryptocurrency itself, because Stripe is trying to keep themselves, up until now, Stripe's been trying to keep themselves abstracted from the handling of cryptocurrency. There's all kinds of complicated reasons for that from a compliance and commercial perspective with their underlying partners. But the reality is that they've been learning about this for 8 years now, and they've had some fits and starts, and that's part of the learning process. This is a very calculated bet. And checkout.com, one of their competitors, is relatively crypto friendly. They do payouts in USDC, like merchant settlements already. Stripe was already doing USDC based merchant settlements. PayPal's got their own stable coin. Mercado Libre in Mexico has their own stable coin. I just think the gloves are off. And even in respect of Money 2020, as I started to set up my schedule in the last couple of weeks, there's a good handful of very interesting stablecoin infrastructure, tokenized real world asset infrastructure businesses that are going to be there and are running a BD motion for fintechs and institutions that are at Money 2020. So I'm super excited about that. Let's maybe turn our attention to some of the things that you're thinking about day to day that you also expect to be themes at Money20.
Yeah, sure. So, we've got some clients working on new card programs, specifically credit card programs. And one of the things that I think is a nice sight to see just for the competitive landscape in Canada is a handful of new sponsor banks coming to the table, aggressively looking to start building out card program sponsorship. These banks, they don't lack
Sorry to interrupt,
sophistication.
specifically on credit though,
Correct.
which is,
Yeah.
I think, directly related to the conversation we had last week about the shift from prepaid to credit.
Yeah, no, certainly. And the sponsor banks coming to the table that they don't lack sophistication. They've got operational prowess. I've been super impressed by, I guess, their approach in wanting to get to like deep levels of understanding the program and help form and shape it, prior to like an LOI or an MSA, being issued. Really taking the time to explain out how their bank works, what their process is going to look like. And I think that that's just in an effort, as a new entrant to help differentiate the way and style that they plan on doing business with, new program managers in Canada.
Do you find that the conversation with a sponsor bank around credit card program versus a prepaid program is a little more wide open from the perspective of how you do it? Meaning you need a loan management system of some variety. Some of the
Mhm.
processors will provide it. Some of the processors really stay in their lane on transaction processing. Are you finding that that's part of what's interesting about this conversation is you kind of get to build from the ground up with the sponsor bank? They don't really have a preconceived notion about how credit programs should work yet.
Here's what I'd say. I think that you probably do have a pretty prescribed definition of what your typical unsecured credit card looks like and how it functions. And within that, I think that the key is that really the anatomy of a credit card program is like many, many different parts. And what's interesting about credit versus prepaid is that in credit, I think that those individual parts really do have some flexibility in the way that they're flexed and manipulated. There's multiple concepts of credit cards. There's charge cards, there's secured cards, and there's also cards now that are helping you build your credit profile and credit score in unique ways and in different geographies that haven't necessarily made its way to Canada. And so what I think is unique to credit is that fintechs and program managers, when they actually boil down, goes into building a credit card program, I think that there is some unique flexibility that you can conceptualize new programs on top of. And taking those program ideas to the right sponsor banks will open up a discussion on, how it can be done and what they can do to help. And generally an openness, especially from some of the newer providers around like, okay, well, how can we support this new and innovative program in the market? Yeah, we can do the copy paste on a traditional program really, really quickly. But hey, if we're going to make our mark, maybe we take a stab at building something new and unique with a partner that's thinking creatively. So yeah, definitely seeing a lot of openness on credit and really all different forms of credit.
Yeah, and it's not unique to the Canadian market either. I think the point that prepaid programs have been relatively easy to stand up in the
Mhm.
last 5 years. Like when I did my first one, which you had done one before I did even, but when I did my first one in 2017, it was quite challenging to do. And that was the gap that Marqeta filled. As you can see with all of the challenges that sponsor banking has had in the US, by virtue of Evolve and some of the partners that they were working with and some of the
Yeah.
programs that were on those partners, everyone is retreating back to where they know they can create big volume. And the big volume is going to come from the programs that are sophisticated enough and scaled enough to support credit and for it to be a bespoke offering, because every prepaid program is basically the same. And once you get into credit, you can create real differentiation. So I get why everybody's excited about that. And I get why there's just a lot more flexibility in how you do that, but you have to be a lot more delicate in your approach. It's going to take a lot of time and effort for the various parties, processor, program manager slash fintech, loan management system, and the sponsor bank to all get on the same page. Not to mention, you still have to go raise, a warehouse credit facility and be able to deliver customers in that box that are profitable. So I love it. I love that we're getting to a place where there's that depth of engagement between the fintech and the banking partner. So very exciting. Is there anything else that we should talk about before we sign off for today? Is there any other components of our little jaunt to Vegas that you want to raise?
No, just, I think Vegas, Money 2020, you got to make some room for fun. I think that's the key, be
Not having any
flexible.
fun. Don't wait.
You got all these people there, who, I think it's a luxury face to face these days. It's like a special time. There's going to be a lot of people there that for the last 8 or 9 months, I have like solely just been meeting up with over video, and there's tons of time to just like nail down and focus on like pure business stuff over video calls. But like, this is the chance to actually get to know somebody. And so I'm just really looking forward to connecting with people and doing a little bit of business, but in true Kinvey spirit, having a little fun as well.
Yeah, it really is amazing that it is almost our entire network in one place once a year. And and a lot of these folks have become friends, right? Because when
Totally.
you see somebody and you do business together over a decade, it creates a lot of meaning. So cool. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing you Sunday night. We're staying at the Trump Hotel on your recommendation. Right. I will post the receipts and the TripAdvisor review after our stay.
Yeah.
And I'll see you Sunday.